22 at 6:30 p.m. If we would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is anyone in the audience audio or video recording this evening? Hearing none. Any selectmen's comments or announcements this evening?
I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order this meeting at the same time that Audrey called the general meeting to order.
That's certainly fine. I was thinking, I'm sorry, I thought I had talked to you before about just before item number 6, calling the other boards to order. But that sounds fine. All right, thank you.
Madam Chair,
yes.
We'd like to call to order the meeting of the school committee.
The audit committee at the moment does not have a quorum, so I will be recusing myself when we come to item 6 from the Board of Selectmen, and will be participating as a member of the audit committee, and they will be called to order at that time. Okay, public comments or announcements? We have no public hearings, no appointments. We do have one permit. If we can ask everyone's indulgence for a moment. This person has been before us a couple of times already for Piper's Mobile Kitchen. He has a confirmed location with the CAC. The information is in your Dropbox. He has provided the letter of support, his ServSafe, permission of use for the Immaculate Heart Kitchen. Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward?
I need to know what the hours are that he will be operating. What are the hours?
The hours?
It doesn't specify.
It does
Madam
not.
Chair,
Yes.
the individual in question is actually going to be joining us at 7 o'clock. If you'd like to pass over it for now and can come back, we'll spare everyone else.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do I have a motion to pass over item 5?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. All right, I'm going to recuse myself from the Board of Selectmen. I will return it over to Vice Chair Ward. Can you call us to order now?
I would like to call the audit committee to order.
The next item on the agenda is the Audit Committee presentation of the fiscal year 21 audit. I'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Casavan, Chair of the Audit Committee.
Thank you. As it indicated, we are here today to talk, or we have the presentation of the FY21 audit. To do that and to help us is Mr. Tony Roselli from Roselli, Clark and Associates to go through, answer any questions and through the actual report. So I would, at this point, turn it over to Mr. Roselli.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for having me tonight. A couple of weeks ago, we had a meeting with the Audit Committee. It went very well. There was a lot of going back and forth, a lot of discussion. I thought it was a very productive meeting. And one of the things, and I want to talk about it at the beginning of this, which I find is going to be very important for this town, is the turnover. So you've got turnover at the treasurer's office. You have potential turnover with the town accountant's office. There's been turnover at the school. There's been turnover at the town manager's seat. And I'm flipping back to 2011 and 12 right now. And this is how things started. A lot of turnover. Folks coming in not familiar with the system, not familiar with the processes, not familiar with the workarounds, and next thing you know, there was a pretty big problem here in town that hit in about 12 or 13. So I can't stress enough how important it is for you folks to have a plan. You have to have a plan right now. What are you going to do about your treasurer? What are you going to do about your accountant's office? Your school has The new player is in place, the town manager is in place, but the two critical pieces of this to avoid, if we don't learn from history, we're going to repeat history. So really, that's the one thing that if we don't take anything else from tonight's meeting, the town needs to have a plan. And that's important. Any questions on that? I think that's a pretty basic management assumption, and I think you're all aware of it. I just want to reinforce it. So,
Tony, when you say a plan, you're talking like an exit plan or a continuity plan of the work that they do, or anything
Really-
particular?
Really, I mean, right now, okay, let's step back. So I've got over 100 clients, and a lot of them are going through the same issue.
I'm sorry, Tony, a little closer. Yeah.
A lot of them are going through this same issue where people are just retiring. And there's not a lot of young people in the workforce that are, replacing these individuals that have been around for a long time that have now retired. So what's happening is you're getting consultants in, and you're getting folks in that just aren't qualified to be doing the work just because you're desperate. So you just hire someone. And when I say plan, there's opportunities to regionalize some of these positions. A lot of towns partner up with another town, and the same treasurer does both. You're able to offer a higher salary, which you split, and you get a qualified person because they're going to be attracted to the higher salary. So that is an option that probably should be in the plan if you start running into challenges filling those positions. The same thing with the town accountant. There's a group of towns that use the three of them use the same finance director. They just split it. And these are the sorts of things, you got to almost think outside the box. Years ago, someone would resign, retire, leave, you put an ad in the Beacon, and you get a bunch of resumes, and you got some pretty qualified people in those resumes. That's not happening anymore. That's not happening anymore, and the qualified people are cherry picking. They're going for the higher salaries, the better benefits, the closer rides, and I just don't want you guys have put so much work into where you are right now. Things are really done well in this town right now, and all that work you put into it, it falls down 10 times as fast if you don't get the right people in. I've just seen it happen too many times that within 2 or 3 months, the whole thing, kind of blows up. You got you're running along nicely, everything's fine, and then the storm comes in, and it's just, it just really goes down fast. So I'm just putting it out there. If you don't already know what's going out in that workforce, which I believe you all do, that it's important. Start getting, hopefully you have your ads out there to start looking at people. Do you have the right people? Don't just hire anyone. Don't just hire anyone. You're better off going with a consultant than just hiring anyone, because you'll be paying the consultant later. That's what's happening. And I think you had Eric Kinshirf had to come in here. You paid him a lot of money to sort a lot of stuff out in this town back in 2013. So that's the theme to this management letter. Things are well. They're going well, and try to keep it going by having a plan. Questions on any of on my preaching? It's hard. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's hard. It's going to take a lot of effort to get the right people in place. Tough market out there, really tough. But on some good notes, the town's unassigned fund balance, $3.6 million. Okay, that's
Page 2. Whoever's doing that.
sorry, page 2. Unassigned fund balance, 3.6. In 2014, it was negative 3.6. That's your, boom, that was your, I think, your deficit loan amount. So you flipped it around completely. Coincidentally, it's the same number. But you've got unassigned fund balance at 3.6. Included in that number is stabilization funds, which are 1.2 million. So it's a subset of the 3.6. It's not in addition to the 3.6. Your budget for fiscal '22 was balanced. I know at the beginning of the year, there was some challenges with whether the state could even balance their budget. They got that done. The federal government came to the rescue with funds. So in the end, everything ended up pretty well for most communities, especially those that had been well managed over the last couple of years, that already had been established reserves and were going in the right direction. You've got an ARPA allotment of $3.3 million. And as you're aware, a few months ago, the federal government was kind enough to say that up to $10 million can be used at the community's discretion for basically anything. So there's $3.3 million that I don't like to use the word stabilization because it says you can't use it for stabilization, but it's almost like a stabilization fund. It's an extra fund that can be used for capital. It can be used for emergencies, a snow emergency. It can be used in your budget, although I advise against that. Some communities, no matter how hard I've tried, have used a good portion in their budgets. They're going to face a budget cliff in a couple of years when that money's no longer there. So I'm strongly urging you not to use it in your budget, but to use it for one-time things that improve the community. Any questions on just those quick financial highlights? Okay, down below, we're talking about transition. We've already done that, so we don't need to redo that speech. Okay, page 3. Page 3, at the top of the list, I have network security. I always do. Just stay vigilant. It's going well. In what I'm looking at, I don't see anything that I'm overly concerned about. But you don't want to be that town that makes it to the newspaper, getting held for ransomware, and you're locked out of your system and you can't get in. So it's important to just stay vigilant, train employees, let your employees know what they can and can't be clicking on. And I believe you do have this. You've got the fake fishes that are coming through to see which employees are susceptible to clicking and which ones aren't. So it's important to stay vigilant then. We've got to stay in front of that battle against the hackers and the cyber crimes. Next area, long-term obligations. This is an area the town is a little bit weak on that I'd like to see some improvements in. Worcester County, you really can't control. Okay, so in terms of your pension obligation, which is a long-term obligation, that's kind of in the control of Worcester County. You're part of the Worcester County pension system. And they're going to tell you what you need to pay them every year. I've talked to the actuary, and she said to me that you can expect 10% increases for probably the foreseeable future,
Right.
just because the county was so far behind. Right now, they're at 50% funded. The state average is 65%. So that's something you need to kind of put into your strategic long-term plans, your 5-year forecast, that you expect some increases there. The second obligation is your OPEB. Right now, you only have $12,000 in a plan that you established about 10 years ago. There's only $12,000 in there. There's been no meaningful contributions made to your OPEB. And for those who are unaware of what OPEB is, it's the health insurance that you're obligated to pay to your retired employees. So as your employees work in Winchendon, they earn the right to health insurance. And when they retire, if they've met the qualifications, you have to pay, I think, is it 50% or 50%, right? You have to pay 50% of their health insurance. Well, guess what? Good news for guys like me, we're living longer. So once we retire, we still got another 30 years, where when Social Security was put in back in the 60s, the average death was 67 years old, so they only planned it that you'd have to live 4 or 5 years after retirement. Well, guess what? Social Security's got a lot of retooling to do because people are living into their 90s now. And the same thing's happening with these insurance benefits. And pretty soon, you're going to have more people retired collecting benefits than people are working for the town. So that number's going to get pretty big. And what the OPEB is, it's putting aside money now to be able to sustain those increases and make those payments. And right now, the town is, down near, I know you want to talk, so I'll let you talk.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that we've adopted a policy to make annual payments into OPEB that the Board of Selectmen approved last year. And
Okay.
it's based on a percentage of the annual premiums for insurance.
Okay,
So that as insurance goes up, the annual donation to OPEB will go up too.
oh, great, yeah, the audit committee had talked about, there was some sort of process in place. I didn't know exactly how it works. So it's a percentage of the premium?
Right, that would be built into the operating budget.
Built into the- so
as
it's baked into the
opposed
budget,
to, well,
yep.
we're doing okay with free cash this year, let's put some money in it.
So that's actually great. So you start a process where you bake it into the budget, and then what will happen in 2034 or 35, I believe, your pension will be fully funded, so that all you have to do is pay normal cost. That will create, and that's already baked in your budget, so it will create money in your budget that you can then increase your OPEB funding at that time. So that's a good strategy to see. So about how much is that going to be a year, do you think?
About $100,000 this year.
Okay, it's a start. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a good place to be. Any other questions on that? Okay. The next area are the findings. So we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty. Turnover in the treasurer's office didn't go as well as expected. So there was some delays in the bank reconciliation process, cash reconciliation process, getting receipts over to the town accountant. So there were issues there that hopefully, I believe your retired treasurer has come back part-time, so hopefully she's working through those issues, and we can do the audit in the normal time frame again that we normally like to do in September, October. So yeah, so that kind of, and that's an example of how it can fall down so fast. You work hard to build and reconcile. Somebody leaves, someone comes in that's not familiar with the process, and it starts to slip. So that's really an area. Fortunately, Donna is able to assist, or the town might have bigger issues.
That we get back.
So that is. Any questions on that, cash reconciliations?
Tony, so if the audit was delayed, was that the primary factor, or were there any other reasons or factors that we could discuss or fix in order to, get the audit in time?
The audit, actually, when everyone came together, kind of got this done. It's just when we went back to how it was going on during the year,
Okay.
you could see that it was a broken process. But by the time we got out to do the audit, I believe in October, and again, this was only, 3 or 4 months of, I think your treasurer retired in February, so it was only 3 or 4 months. My concern was that fiscal '22, which is a 12-month period, would be further behind. Hopefully Donna is on top of that, because we're now at the end of the year. And I think she's only been back for about 6 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, probably about. So hopefully she's making some headway on that. And there were some things with getting the single audit done and some of the final grants and things like that over at the school side. The school is in much better shape. and hopefully as close to given as a package that's, you know, a good package, hopefully for this year. I understand you have some experience, so I'm encouraged by that. In the past, we've had folks come in that just didn't have experience, and when you don't have experience, you don't get a quality product. So that's always been a delay in the past. So you end up finishing all the town work, the field work at the town, but you're still trying to get the school stuff done in February, March, and that's what kind of delays the process.
Thank you.
All right, so one of the items, hopefully you're on top of this, is the compensated absences. So the school compensated absences you weren't able to provide those in time for the audit, so we ended up using the prior year balance, which we know that it doesn't change much, so the financials are not materially incorrect. But more importantly, you want to know, what's going on with your compensated absences, just from an operational standpoint. So hopefully that's something that won't be an issue this year.
Mr. Chair, I have a question of the school committee. So compensated absences, I know that in past years, there has been like 4 and 5 sheets of findings for the school, and you've done a tremendous job of cleaning those up, especially with the grants that have gone back, some of them 16 years. So congratulations on that, because that was a heck of a lot of work. So are you looking at compensated absences now and finding a process that is going to work?
You want to speak to that, or you want to? I think it is something we're working on, and we're trying to improve and stay on top of it. I think, with the turnover, we've had a lot of problems, but I think it's a system that we're now getting our arms around and have a much better idea of that going forward.
And I think that when you say turnover, to Tony's point before, we've had turnover, and the town doesn't stop running just because somebody leaves and we get somebody new. So to your point, we do need to have a process, a management system, due dates, when things need to be done by, so if we've missed them, we at least have a heads up before 6 months down the road and we're in a world of hurt. And I think you had mentioned that 3 years ago, and it still hasn't been done. So when we have dates, when we need to have those things done by, I think we need to make an effort to start putting that on the calendar, making sure that we know when things are due. Thanks.
I think, and what I seem to infer from the last audit committee meeting, that you folks are probably going to have periodic meetings to assess where these things stand, and you'll be inviting, the accountant, the treasurer, the school folks into those meetings just to kind of see where those things are at. I think that was the
Well,
that
I
was the
think
goal.
also at our joint board meetings quarterly, we should be given an update to every single one of the findings in the audit.
What I would also suggest, though, and I want to make sure that I frame this correctly, is that there's a lot of dates. There are a lot of things when things are due. And I think that collectively, I don't know, Ms. Ward, if you're talking specifically to the district or to the body at large in terms of dates and times. Again, I think that has to be specified. I'm not sure who would, I guess every board or the entity that runs the department would have to provide those, but that would have to be something that I think that collectively we would need. Is that what you mean? I want to make sure I'm clear. Is it just the district or?
I know the school committee has been late in submitting things to state. If they have a list for school committee, if town has a list when they have to do things, if we have a list, like we're listening now to a management letter from an auditor July the 11th, when we normally do at the end of January, beginning of February, before we look at the budget, we're late 6 months already. So this is unacceptable. We need to go back to when it's due. Early January before budget process.
Understood. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Okay. Next is the tax, some tax titles. So right now, there are 13 parcels that just don't have a name attached to them. Now, they could be a little parcel between two plots, but right now they're just showing up as unknown on the rolls. The balances are not collected. So in the past, there was a problem with getting some outside help, legal help, possibly because of the cost of identifying this. But these things have just been sitting here now for at least 10 or 12 years at least, so if not longer. So it's just time to try to decide how to get rid of these legally. Can the town take them over? Can the town figure out who the owners are, if there are owners? So this is something that the new collector probably should familiarize themselves with as just a project or an analysis, and get some legal help in to figure out what it is. Any questions on that?
If I could just add something to that, and I suppose it's a little bit in response to Dr. Ward's thoughts of quarterly updates. Some of the items on this list are things that you're not going to see progress on in a 3-month period, or a 6-month period, sometimes a year or more. And then case in point that some of these have been sitting here for a really long time. So I think just on my end, setting realistic expectations, there are some items where I think we could provide immediate or provide a immediate response to in terms of addressing some of these problems. But just for the group at large to consider, some of these are long-standing issues that I think are a little bit more complex. As much as I'd like to be able to wave a wand or have my staff wave a wand and address some of them, some of these are things that we're going to have to kind of chip away at over a long period of time. That doesn't take away the value of meeting quarterly, but I think in terms of expectations, if we meet again in 3 months, that this whole list isn't going to be removed. A lot of these are kind of long-haul issues that we can definitely work on. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think if I wasn't misunderstanding, Dr. Ward, I think let's just bring him up as a tickler so we don't forget and don't let it go off the radar for another 12 years.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Mr. Roselli? No?
Okay. Next, I had made a recommendation a couple of years ago that for someone to just go through like a human resource function of reviewing personnel files, because we find that when we go through the files, there are things missing, the most recent W-4s, I-9 forms, things that should be in files we're finding are not there. And it's important that as a town that your human resource function is very strong. And to go through this process and fix the files. If you're missing a W-4, contact the employee and say, hey, we got to fill this out and put it in the file. These are all things that you're required to have. If something ever happened from a litigation standpoint or some sort of dispute and your files are not complete, that would be a problem for the town. So it's good to every couple of years have someone who's intimate with payroll just go through all the files and say, hey, this is what's missing, this is what we need, and go gather it. So I put this out in 2019 because we kind of did the process ourselves. We looked at about 30 or 40 files, and we found that there were things missing, so we said, hey, if there were 40 perfect ones, I would not have made this recommendation. But I said, hey, there's some things missing, so it's a good idea for someone to go through all the files. We just did a sample. So I know that hasn't happened yet with turnover and whatnot, but it's something that I do recommend you pursue.
Mr. Salzback, is that something that the tax work-off for the seniors is a possibility of doing that, or does that fall under personal information that they?
Yeah, I think I would have some privacy concerns with that. So it's probably something we'd want to handle with somebody that's on staff. Okay. And that is always kind of comes down to a matter of bandwidth. But I think if it's something that we're doing, as practice, when people are coming in the door and we're onboarding people, we should be making sure that we have all of that. And then going through existing employees and existing files, I don't see any reason why we couldn't chip away at a portion of them every month. You go through 15 or something, just to,
Yeah.
regularly go through.
Mr. Chair? Tony, you used the term human resources, and I know that in the last audit committee meeting, we had a little bit of discussion of this, and I know it's been bantered around a little bit. Obviously, we don't have a human resource person, let alone a department. Is that something, from your standpoint, from your opinion, are we at the point now where, is that something that we should consider or certainly look into bringing on board or creating?
I think so. Does the school have a human resource position, or do you guys kind of?
It actually falls upon myself, the superintendent's executive secretary, and our payroll human resources clerk.
So it's kind of fragmented there, it's fragmented at the town?
Yeah, we don't, at the town side, there is no one person.
It may make sense to have
understanding.
someone manage both the town and the school as a human resource office. I think that may make sense, and then, the cost can be split. Or the other thing I had mentioned is, if there are so many other towns that are looking to do what you're doing, but it's cost prohibitive because it's not a full-time position. So again, you regionalize with another town, and you can have one human resource officer cover a couple of towns. That's another way to do it. And, but clearly, yeah, it's something I would think is, at this point where the town has grown, and it's an important position, I think.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay?
John?
Guys are good. So,
Tired person that just wants to
couple of
deal.
things in the single audit, which most of it focused on the school department this year. Sometimes it's the CDBG. Next time around, it'd probably be the ARPA that will qualify for the single audit. So there were three findings, and these have already been agreed to, by the school, because we have to submit an action plan and send it off to the feds. So there were 2 final reports, which is better than 13 final reports not being filed on time. So 2 final reports is not bad. It was beyond the 90-day submission deadline. Time and effort certifications. This is important. So if you have people that have multiple functions, you need a way to capture the town, capture their time and how it's charged to the particular grant. So we did not see the time and effort certifications for grant employees. So if someone's just doing one job and that's all they do, that's not as critical. But if they're doing Chapter 1, Title 5, school curriculum, if they're doing all different things, there's got to be some sort of a time and effort certification process in place. And then lastly, there were some invoices charged. So typically you think you've got the grant approved, you start spending money right away. There's actually a period of performance where you can only, the grant's going to start on a certain date, it's going to end on a certain date. That's your time to spend. You can't spend before or after. So there was about $64,000 that was charged outside of the period of performance. So the school understands these 3 findings. I was satisfied with the corrective action plan that you gave us. So we'll be looking to evaluate and assess that when we come back. And then lastly, and I don't know if you got my email. I sent you the
I did.
capital assets.
Thank you.
The last time the capital assets were, we still got vehicles from 2002 on the inventory, 2004. I said, these can't possibly exist. So I had put a recommendation down here that we have the inventory, and as I look at it, I say, yeah, some of these are gone. So Audrey had volunteered to look at it and meet with some of the department heads and put like a cross off the ones that are no longer part of the fixed asset inventory, and then we can make those revisions to the fixed assets. But I think it's important to have a complete and accurate record of what you own for assets.
Great to be retired, isn't it, Audrey?
wish.
So
Okay.
that's what I got. Any questions? You guys have been great tonight.
Any questions? The group? Yes.
No question, but thank you again. It's been, there have been some management letters that have, I won't say used a ream of paper, but much more than the 4 or 5 pages we have, and it's been great, everybody in the town working through to bring us to where we are. So just a huge shout out to everyone, not just who's in the room tonight, but everyone in town, staff, volunteers, who work behind the scenes to get this done right. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All set?
Great. Thanks.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your meeting. Thanks.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay. So I think, we're all done as a tri-board.
I think, right, so I think I'm going to look for, entertain a
Yep.
motion to adjourn for the
Motion to
Finance
adjourn.
Committee.
7:07.
Should we wait for Linda? For the Board of Selectmen at 7:12. All right, we're going back to 5.1. We have a mobile vendor permit for Piper's Mobile Kitchen. Good evening. Thank you for your patience.
Absolutely, thank you. My name is William Piper, and I'm back to see if I can get a mobile vending permit this week. I'm currently looking to set up...
A little closer.
I'm currently looking to set up at the CAC down on Central Street. I have permission from them written for Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and hopefully I'll be there for the majority of the summer.
Very good. I know you've been before us previously. Thank you for coming back. I believe all the paperwork is in order. There was a question of what hours you'd be open.
Currently, I'm looking to be open between 10:30 and 2:30. That's what I put on my health inspection application. I may ask them to extend it to 5, though, for the duration of the summer, because it tends to get darker later.
Okay, so we're looking at 10:30 to 5, and that was on Tuesdays and Wednesdays?
Yes.
Okay, great. No concerns by department heads? Fees have been paid, Serve Safe is in place. Still using the Immaculate Heart of Mary?
As my
kitchen?
commissary, yes.
Yeah, very good. Questions, comments from the board? Hmm? I have none, so that being the case, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll try to do this with my laryngitis. I move to approve the mobile vendor permit for Piper's Mobile Kitchens, LLC, to be located at the CAC Center, 273 Central Street, with the hours to be Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 10:30 to 5 p.m. as presented this evening.
Second.
Thank you. Made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you
Best
so
of
much.
luck.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Next, we have 7.1, transfer of Beach Street deed to Winchton Redevelopment Authority. Mr. Saltzback.
Don't we do the budget transfers first?
We don't have any,
Oh,
do we?
I was hoping that we could just ignore them tonight. No,
6.2.
I know. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. 6.2, FY '22 end-of-year budget transfers. We have 20 transfers before us this evening. Again, end of year, moving money around to cover expenses. We have been provided a spreadsheet as previously done, along with the individual requests. So I believe the last time we did take them individually, and just reading off the name of the account from, the names of the accounts to with the amounts, and then the total amount. And the reason. That being said, if someone would, do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I would like to make a motion to transfer from health insurance to $378, wait a minute, let me do it again. Transfer $378.12 from health insurance to life insurance, and to transfer $50.63 from health insurance to retired life insurance, for a total of $428.75.
Do I have a second? Seconded. Made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Mrs. Anderson?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to transfer $160,000 from vet services, $100,000 from health insurance, $58,000 from Monty Tech, and $5,400 from homeless transport to cover a total of $323,400 in snow and ice materials.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah,
Yes.
You
Yeah,
go.
the veteran service for 160,000, why do we have that left over?
Sure, and that's an excellent question. And we actually did address that a little bit in the crafting of the fiscal year '23 budget. So, as you may recall, over this past year, we've been going through our existing rules and finding some veterans that didn't have paperwork that supported or justified why they were receiving benefits. And so when the fiscal '22 budget was developed, we thought we had way more veterans with way more of a need than actually existed in reality. So since then, we've cleaned that up. There's been less of a draw on that, and we did reduce that line item in fiscal '23.
Okay, the people who are receiving services, the money's there for them.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Anderson?
Thank you. I have a couple questions, because that's just a huge number. And in previous years, and we had put money aside in a special account, I think under Finance Committee, for snow and ice overages. And I'm wondering why we didn't do it this year. Not that you made the budget that this is coming from, but.
Sure. So the fiscal '22 budget I did not make, and with that said, I did make the fiscal '23 one, and I did not build it into fiscal '23 because it wasn't in fiscal '22. I'm not sure why in years prior that kind of little buffer was put in there, and I'm not sure why it was taken out. It's something that's nice to have and maybe something worth exploring in future years. Snow and ice is always one of those weird things, I think, for every community where you're kind of rolling the dice. You don't really know what's going to happen weather-wise, and then in combination this year, fluctuations in the cost of material result in a significant hit. I mean, I've seen snowier winters. This one was mostly ice, which resulted in the need for a lot of salt, and the cost of salt went up on top of it. But I think there may be value in exploring having that cushion built in future years with the Finance Committee. But even then, I think the amount that they had wouldn't have come close to covering what we saw this year. I think this was a particularly difficult year, and hopefully we're not going to see similar trends in the future.
And then I think the other question, because I actually wrote it down, is this year is the first year in a long time that the governor declared a snow emergency. Did we apply for those emergency funds? There was one storm that he declared a snow emergency that we would be eligible for funding. That hadn't happened since he became governor.
So that I can't speak to with confidence, so I'm going to have to look into it. I want to say that we did, but I don't want to say that we did without confirming it first. So I'll shoot the board an email tomorrow.
Super, that works. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget. Okay.
All right, so it has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I would like to transfer the amount of $26,620 from homeless transport to snow and ice overtime.
Seconded.
Thank you, made and seconded. I have a question. Homeless transport, what exactly does that cover?
So that I carried over. It's an existing line item, I believe. It's a number that we're handed from the state that we're required to fund. But in terms of actually expending it, I didn't see anything come through in terms of an expense.
Okay.
But I can get a better backstory on that.
Yeah, if you would. I mean, it's a lot of money that was in that account, having over $30,000 initially. All right, thank you. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Mrs. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to transfer the amount of $117 from DPW dues to cemetery materials.
Seconded.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I would like to transfer the amount of $13,000 from highway supplies to highway vehicle maintenance.
Seconded.
Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Bless you.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I would like to transfer the amount of $10,000 from highway supplies to highway vehicle fuel.
Do I have a second?
Oh, seconded.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Can I just ask, is that because of the rising cost of fuel this year?
That is correct.
Okay.
And if I can just piggyback on that, I know there's no crystal ball, but when doing the FY '23 budget, was there a buffer in there, or how was that fuel line across the board for all fuel expenses for the town, taking into account the rising prices?
We did try to pad those a little bit. I think that we are hoping that we're seeing the peak and that once we're, firmly into this fiscal year, that we'll see that reduce a little bit and we won't need that extra money. But then again, you never know what comes down the road. We could end up being in a deficit again. I just wanted to make sure we had enough in there that if we were a little over, that we weren't significantly over. And so that's what we carried in the fiscal '23 budget. I think across the board, we did an increase of about 10 to 15% on all our different fuel lines, depending on what they were trending for usage. So we should be mostly covered.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Anything further? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I would like to transfer the amount of $7,000 from dam inspection to highway vehicle fuel.
Seconded.
Questions, comments from the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I would like to I make a motion to transfer the amount of $8,500 from fleet maintenance payroll to highway vehicle fuel.
Seconded.
Questions, comments from the board? I've got a question. So we don't usually see transfers from payroll lines, as I recall. Any particular reason why there was extra in that payroll line, do we know?
If Director Croto would like to come up, but I do believe we had some turnover in that position that may have left a remainder. Is that?
Yeah, there was turnover. We brought in a mechanic that hasn't gotten the CDL, so the pays have been reduced till they get the appropriate licenses. And we did have a 2-month lapse before the last mechanic left till we hired the new mechanic. So that saved a considerable amount of money.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Anything further from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I make a motion to transfer the amount of $300 from medical supplies to cemetery
You're too far. Right there. Yep.
materials.
Seconded.
I'm sorry, my warped sense of humor. Medical supplies aren't going to do much help in the cemetery. It's a little late at that point, but anyway.
Morbid.
Questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I would like to make a motion to transfer the amount of $5,404 from Money Tech Assessment to hardware support.
Seconded.
Questions, comments?
What's hardware support?
Thank you.
Sure. So within our IT lines, we have software support and hardware support. For this particular item, there was the issue with the Kaspersky, firewall that we have for our operations, and the federal government issued a notice that there may be some Russian ties So at the time when Russia initially invaded Ukraine, they released a statement saying that we'd be better served jumping ship and hiring a different firm to protect our files on the IT side of things. So that's basically where it came from.
If I could just make a suggestion, would it be possible to rename that IT hardware support? That would, I didn't, pinpoint where it's going. That would be helpful for the future. Thank you. Anything further from the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson.
I make a motion to transfer the amount of $2,948.12 from the CD director salary to the land use clerk.
Seconded.
Questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson.
I make a motion to transfer the amount of $500 from the TM building and equipment repair to BML building repair.
Seconded.
Questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson.
I make a motion to transfer the amount of $655 from the TM in-state travel to BML building repair.
Seconded.
Questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. This is for the skylight, right?
That is correct.
Thank you.
That's what BML building repair is?
Beals Memorial Library.
I did. All right. Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson.
I make a motion to transfer $195 from town manager out-of-state travel to Beals Memorial Library building repair.
Seconded.
Questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson.
I make a motion to transfer the amount of $7,513.29 from vacation buyback to vehicle fuel.
Seconded.
Questions, comments from the board?
I thought we didn't have vacation buyback.
The police are the only ones that have that. It's an existing carryover in their contract, but town hall employees do not have it.
I thought we got rid of it.
It still remains, unfortunately, but it's something we can look into in future years, but it would have to be a trade-off.
Anything further?
Nope.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson.
I make a motion to transfer the amount of $7,400 from Monty Tech Assessment to Town Hall fuel oil.
Seconded.
Questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson.
I make a motion to transfer the amount of $2,020 from unemployment insurance to RMV non-renewal.
Seconded.
What is RMV? Well,
Right.
In my mind, that is, but
But non-renewal,
we have a budget line item that says RMV non-renewal. Doesn't make sense to me. Any input on it?
Linda? Are you familiar with that one?
If not this evening, if you could just follow up with us, I would appreciate it.
And on the sheet.
Usually if you don't renew something,
Shuffle some papers real quick.
usually if you don't renew something, you don't have to pay.
right.
Yeah, but she wants to know what that stands for.
We'll send you an email with the other ones. Oh,
Beg pardon?
The cherry sheet,
Something from the cherry sheet?
because I asked Joanne about this. She said this is referring to the cherry sheet.
is it like state assessment?
The word on Halloween.
I'll email you.
Please, thank you. Anything further from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson.
I make a motion to transfer the amount of $16,178.94 from health insurance to Medicare.
I will second with a question.
Thank you, go ahead.
Why are we paying Medicare? Like, what does that mean?
It's supplemental, and when we budget for it every year, we're going based off of what our existing,
So that's the supplemental policies for our employees who are on Medicare?
correct,
Okay, you separate that from the regular health insurance?
was the retirees. It's supplemental to Medicare for the retirees.
But it's not really going to Medicare, it's going to the health insurance company,
Correct,
because they pay the Medicare portion.
correct.
Anything further? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson,
I make a motion to transfer the amount of $3,364.17 from the debt principal to debt interest long-term.
Second.
questions or comments? Scroll over all the way to the right, please, Justin, for, just from P and I, okay. Questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson,
I make a motion to transfer $960 from Veterans Memorial Day to Veterans Services Director's salary.
Seconded.
questions, comments from the board?
What is Veterans Memorial Day for?
So in the past, the town, it's my understanding, when Mr. Gothier was here, that the town had more involvement in planning the Veterans Day ceremony and the Memorial Day ceremonies. Since then, the Legion has taken a bigger hand in it, with the change of the guard there. So we do have it built in for fiscal year '23. And Steve Bassett, our not-so-new veterans agent, has made a commitment to have the town take on an increased role in that again, to try to provide more support. But that's basically what that line item is.
Thank you.
Anything further? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Now, I understand the Finance Committee will be looking at these tomorrow night, is that correct?
Correct.
All right,
Madam
thank you
Chair?
very much. Mr. Ward?
Yeah, I understand they're going to be doing this tomorrow night. We should have reversed the order on these, because the Finance Committee's supposed to be making recommendations to us, and we're voting before we even hear what their recommendations are. It's just,
For
I
future,
think for budget transfers, we've always done it
it's
first,
the other way. Got to be the other way.
Should be the other way.
but
Makes
it doesn't
sense.
have to be.
okay. Note for future.
Noted, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, 7.1, transfer of Beach Street deed to Winchton Redevelopment Authority. Mr. Saltzbat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So included in your packet, you'll see some documents from legal counsel regarding 3 to 11 Beach Street. So those two parcels, the garage and the two-family structure, have officially been submitted to the Registry of Deeds as of June 29th, so the town has full ownership. As part of the special town meeting, the second piece of that process was for the town to then transfer those properties over to the redevelopment authority. And so that's the request we have this evening, just as a formality that the board moved to transfer the parcels 1 and 2 as referenced in the attached documents to the redevelopment authority, so we can move forward on fixing up and improving those two pieces of land.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the board? Seeing and hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson.
I move that the board transfer parcels 1 and 2 as outlined in the presented documents to the Winchton Redevelopment Authority in recognition of the passage of Article 15 of the November 8th, 2021 special town meeting.
Seconded.
Questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Can't wait to see some action on that piece. Town Manager's Report, Mr. Saltzback.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Finance Committee will be meeting tomorrow night to finalize year-end transfers. and we are researching the process to receive funds from the National Opioid Settlement. As you know, that's something that's been ongoing. Once I receive word of an exact figure, I'll notify the board. And I will mention that Representative Zlotnick has been in touch, and he's been trying to coordinate an effort to, I guess, find a good way to regionally focus those funds. And the reason being that a lot of the municipalities, ourselves included, the amount that we end up getting in terms of that settlement isn't realistically enough resources to have a meaningful change on their own. And so his hope is if he can get Winchendon, Templeton, Gardner, and lump us all together, that we might be able to have some type of regional resource that we could all contribute to based on the size of our population. And so he will have, I'm hoping in the next few weeks, some type of really baseline preliminary plan that the board can review and kind of talk about and discuss as a community, so that when those funds do roll through, we can have a big impact and have a shot at actually having some change and turn the tide on that issue. So I'll keep the board up to date on that. On the personnel side of things, a second round of interviews was held for the treasurer position today. Donna Spellman, our interim treasurer, and Joanne Gogan, our accountant, joined me. And it was very productive, so I'll have hopefully some good news for the board on that shortly. And the part-time rec coordinator position has been posted internally. Well, I intended to as of this afternoon, but it's going to go out at noon tomorrow. I wanted to get some feedback from the Community Park Committee. For the project update side of things, a site walk was held at the Winchendon Community Park last week. This included myself, architects, project managers, and the construction firm to take a look at the progress. They have started pouring concrete down there, and you can actually kind of really visualize the footprint of what it's going to look like. So if you have a chance to poke your head down there, it's worth it. Russo Barr, the architect for the old Murdoch, will be in town in the coming weeks to kick off the design process for the repairs at the senior center. As you may recall, they'll be doing or going through that process pretty much through the summer, fall, and winter, with the hopes to go out to bid shortly thereafter. Work is going to begin at the Town Hall cupola starting no later than early September. We had a firm in to drop some plans that'll help us go out and have some biddable documents. So that will include repairing all of the existing material as you currently see it, and then may also include some lighting depending on where the budget is on that. So at night it will be illuminated along with all the other kind of steeples and towers and buttresses and whatever else throughout town at night. Central Street construction was on pause for the 4th of July holiday. It was pretty eerily quiet out there, but it has since commenced, and it is on track for substantial completion in October. And as you may have seen on Facebook, the curbing in most of the sidewalks are in place over on Railroad, with some minor remaining pieces to occur throughout July. So to touch on that one quickly, I was on site this morning or this afternoon with Director Croto, and we were walking the property. What is currently laid out there is the design that went before the Board of Selectmen. There were opportunities for public input. If there were to be a change there, that would come with a cost. So that's the first piece I always wanted to underline. The other piece is, as the opening is currently on Central Street, it's actually a foot wider than what was designed on paper, and that was at Director Croto's request in the field, so they did widen it. But in addition, the mouth there is yet to be formalized, because that is where it ties into Central Street. And so what people are seeing there isn't necessarily the finished product. So the three biggest concerns were concerns over plowing, and our in-house expert on plowing has no concerns. Concerns over radius for emergency apparatus, and we've spoken with the chiefs. There were no concerns over that. And the third was impact to the Winchendon Furniture Company, and I did speak to Mr. Hunt over there, and they have no concerns either. There's a little garage door out back that they hardly ever use, and whenever they do go to use it, there's a vehicle parked there anyway blocking it. So they get all the deliveries on the other side. so there's no concerns. I do kind of hear and understand what the residents are saying. It is tighter than what they typically see, but that's by design. We're trying to slow traffic down so that you're not whipping down that road. And it's also adding a significant amount of diagonal parking, which makes the RHI building way more attractive in terms of future development, because now there's 10 additional dedicated parking spots on that corner that weren't there previously. So we just ask people to be patient, take the long view, and once we get some trees in there and some other pieces and the work's done on Central Street, I think they'll really kind of come to appreciate the way it was laid out and designed. But we appreciate their concerns. We looked into it, and everything is A-okay over there. So if anybody has any questions on that, before I pivot away.
Pivot.
Okay, thank you. And the skylight at the Beals Memorial Library has been removed for repairs off-site, and it will be reinstalled before the fall. And lastly, I toured the Riverside Cemetery last week with our DPW director and cemetery senior foreman, and we will be coming forward with a plan shortly to try to expand the existing footprint as we are rapidly running out of space. A component of that also is going to be reviewing our current fee structure. Part of the reason we're running out of space so rapidly is because we are significantly undercharging compared to other across the street and other nearby cemeteries. So
I have just a question
Mm-hmm.
on that, because I've been going up to Riverside for 11 years now.
Amy, into a mic somewhere,
I'm
please.
sorry, and it just seems to me like the past couple of people have been buried up there. I mean, it's gone downhill in that, like, one person, they covered it up with straw, and it's all weeds now, and there's a couple others that are like that. So, like, what's happening did we have a change of personnel up there? I'm wondering, because it's not to the standard that it's been in the past.
sure. So it's been the same gentleman for about 30 years, right? Give or take. And I don't know if Brian would like to add anything to that, but we can pass that note on and just ask them to be more
I have
mindful.
some specifics for you that I'll give to Brian. Okay, thank you.
Yep, but beyond that, I just wanted to make the board aware that roll that around in your head a little bit, because that'll be coming up in the next month or so.
How much more land do we have available there to expand into?
So that's part of what we're reviewing. A significant portion of the land that we did have was donated for the Veterans Cemetery, which kind of puts us in a little bit of a box.
Right.
And the remaining land that we do have is kind of complicated. There's a lot of steep drops and inclines and kind of difficult terrain. So there's not a ton of room for expansion.
Okay.
But we want to be able to try to squeeze out as much as we can in terms of space, because that needs to service the community well into the future. So it's something that we at least want to get the ball rolling on in terms of having that conversation.
That is the only town cemetery, correct?
Yes, well, active, right?
Active, yes.
No?
We have Old Center, don't we?
I'm about to get schooled over here.
I think the old center's filled. There aren't any vacant.
Barbara's right.
Mr.
You have Old
Frodo.
Center, you have the one that's down in Lake Denison.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but those aren't available. You can't get a lot.
No,
Why
but
not?
there are existing lots and that people own.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, they're families, yeah,
Right.
that have openings.
So
But, I
there's-
mean, but they've all been purchased.
Correct.
Okay, I'm
So
talking
they're not
about,
available. I
Yeah.
can't go. and-
You can't go
General-
buy a lot down
Yeah,
there.
no, I
Okay.
get that, okay.
so this one,
Yeah.
Riverside, is the only one that
You
has
can
lots
actively purchase.
available,
Yep.
active purchase.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's involved, but is looking for a location for a second town cemetery something that we want to consider? If Riverside gets full, is that something that we still want to have in town?
So the initial plan was to come around the corner. I'm going to present a plan later on that's going to take the lower half of the DPW, where all the sand and stuff is now. That'll become cemetery.
Oh,
That'll
okay.
buy us a few years,
Okay,
or probably 20 years. And then the original goal is hopefully we can build a fire station, get that paid off, put the DPW over on Lincoln Ave and then make that whole thing cemetery, which will probably take us close to 50 years. But that's looking way, way down the
Right.
road, but it's
Okay.
it's just a
That's a
vision.
good thought.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. And questions, comments further for the town manager? And moving on, we do have some minutes this evening. First set up is executive session minutes of Monday, February 28th, 2022. And these are for approval only,
No, release.
to be released. Thank you. I wasn't sure if I was reading that right.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I'd like to make a motion to release the executive session minutes of Monday, February 28th, 2022.
Seconded.
Questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Quick question regarding the remaining 3 sets of executive session minutes. Is there any reason to not release them?
I don't believe so. They all have to do with the union contracts that have been approved already.
Okay,
Madam Chair, could you take a roll call vote for your executive session minutes?
I certainly will. Thank you very much. Roll call vote on the February 28th minutes. Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Executive session minutes of Monday, May 23rd, 2022.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I make a motion to approve and release the executive session minutes from Monday, May 23rd, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Next are executive session minutes of Monday, June 13th, 2022.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I'd like to make a motion to approve and release the minutes from Monday, June 13th, 2022.
Seconded.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We have our regular meeting of Monday, 27th, 2022.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from Monday, June 27th, 2022.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, because those were regular meeting minutes.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I'd like to make a motion to approve and release the executive session minutes from Monday, June 27th, 2022.
Seconded.
Thank you. Roll call vote. 1 second. Okay. Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you very much. We have no communications, agenda items. Our next regular meeting is the 25th, 2 weeks from this evening. We do have an executive session this evening.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Anderson?
I move to enter into executive session 13.1 under exemption number 3 to conduct strategy session for preparation for negotiations with non-union employees, subject being the role of the police chief, and to reconvene into public session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Seconded.
Thank you. Made and seconded. Roll call vote. Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We are in executive session at 7:50.